In the 1950s, Los Angeles was growing. It was growing so much that they needed more residential development outside the city. 40 miles north, the oil-rich farmland, known as Newhall Ranch, was assessed as a residential area, which increased the tax burden. The Newhall Land and Farming Company knew there was only one way to meet their new tax obligations, and that was to develop the area and sell homes. They would create a new city called Valencia, named after the oranges that had grown on the land. Construction started in the early 60s, and in 1967, the first residents moved in. The area was beautiful, but obscure, so Newhall Land and Farming was looking for something that would attract people to the area. Little did they know, they were about to unleash a monster, something that would draw people not just from the Los Angeles area, but from the entire world. One of the greatest amusement parks the world has ever seen. This is episode 1 of a 5-episode series celebrating Six Flags Magic Mountain on its 50th anniversary. Join me as we take a journey through the last 5 decades. Newhall Land and Farming didn't necessarily have an amusement park in mind, but while they were looking for some attraction, any attraction, to draw people to Valencia, SeaWorld happened to be looking to build a park in the Los Angeles area. SeaWorld's park in San Diego opened in 1964, just 4 years prior to its executives approaching Los Angeles County to build on unused public land. The idea was initially pitched as an aquatic amusement park, and SeaWorld's San Diego president, George Millay, said he was willing to spend as much money on the first phase of this park as Disney did on the first phase of Disneyland. This was not well received by everyone in the county. Supervisor Kenneth Hahn was staunchly against the idea of a 200-acre, $10 million project, and leaked the secret meeting with SeaWorld to the press in October of 1968. George Millay decided to cancel SeaWorld's request as a result of this premature disclosure, stating, "SeaWorld does not want to become involved in a controversial issue." But the plan was not completely lost. Millay started negotiations with Newhall Land and Farming to purchase private land in the area. Still, by the end of October, Millay was considering other sites for his park, like Chatsworth and Ventura. He was only giving Valencia Valley a 25% chance of landing the park. The area was so attractive because of the amount of unused land, and the future home of the Castaic Reservoir with a 36-mile shoreline, a perfect place for a Disneyland-style facility. Millay stated his decision would be influenced by price and proximity to freeway locations. Months passed, and by December, Millay was back in negotiations with Newhall Land and Farming. In January 1969, a deal was struck. Just as Millay wanted, it would be right next to the Golden State Freeway. It would encompass 120 acres, and it would come with a price tag of $15 million. It was described as a themed park, more than a carnival, but not as sophisticated as Disneyland. One of the reasons this land was chosen was the terrain, featuring a large 110-foot hill on the south side of the land. And rather than cutting down the hillsides, they would work around it. They also envisioned a lot of water in the park to contrast the dry area. Construction was planned to start in February and be ready to open its gates 2 years later, in the spring of 1971. In May of 1969, SeaWorld came out with their first rendering of the park. The park's signature landmark would be a 385-foot tall sky tower at the top of the hill, and would also feature a mine train coaster, a log flume, a carousel, dodgems, a Ferris wheel, a sky ride, a monorail, an amphitheater, a kids area, and so much more. In July, the Newhall Saugus Valencia Chamber of Commerce approved the zoning change needed to build the park, but the project still faced opposition. LA County Supervisor Kenneth Hahn described the park as a honky-tonk, and other residents were concerned that the park would attract dope, narcotics, gang fights, and other undesirable characters. SeaWorld did their best to calm the nerves of Valencia homeowners, with an effort led by Eugene "Doc" Lemon, a former Disneyland executive from the time it opened its gates in 1955. In this initial meeting, Lemon stated the park would not be water-oriented, like SeaWorld in San Diego. It would be an amusement park, open daily during the summer, weekends in the spring and fall, and closed in the winter. The park would also feature a pavilion for concerts and dances. When questioned about traffic, Lemon said they had been working with the highway department to get 4-lane access to the park, and they would be able to park cars faster than you can back them up on the freeway. The park would also benefit local hotels and restaurants. Using Disney as the example, with an expectation that the park would gross $10 million, with $100 million in revenue for local businesses. There was also the matter of naming the park. Valencia Rides Park was pitched and shot down. Another name, drawn from the US Army missile site 18 miles to the east of the park site, emerged as the favorite, Magic Mountain. Lemon said, "I like to call it Magic Mountain. I put Magic Mountain on all the drawings I show on my board. Maybe they'll learn to like it." SeaWorld won approval from the Regional Planning Commission in August, and from the Board of Supervisors in October. SeaWorld was officially a go for the Valencia Valley. Magic Mountain would be a joint venture between SeaWorld and New Holland and Farming, each owning 50%, and investing $4 million in equity in the project, with New Holland and Farming lending $10 million to finance construction. The project was now valued at $20 million. It would be constructed by Randall Duell and Associates out of Santa Monica, having previously designed Six Flags Over Texas, Six Flags Over Georgia, and Astroworld within the last decade. In October 1970, the Sky Tower began construction. This $800,000 project would be designed by Intamin, with a foundation consisting of 6 80-foot caissons and a 13-foot basement. It used 460 tons of steel and could withstand 120-mile-per-hour winds. A little closer to the Earth, giant sections of the Metro monorail were being put into place. In the meantime, the park had purchased a 1912 carousel from West Haven, Connecticut, and were spending $250,000 to restore it as the centerpiece at the front of the park. By December 1970, construction on the park was 70% complete. 300 construction workers were working around the clock to meet the spring 1971 opening date. Even before the park was open to the public, Doc Lemon's promise was paying off. Santa Clarita posted a 14% increase in property value in 1970, with 115 new businesses and over 1,300 new families to the area, with the park receiving credit for the boom. The Metro was complete on February 1st. This 3,700-foot monorail was described as Doc Lemon as one of the most automated mass transit systems in existence, with a computer system knowing where the trains were located at every moment. It would hit a max speed of 12 miles per hour and could circle the whole park in 5 minutes, with 3 stations where guests could hop on board. It may have seemed like smooth sailing toward that spring opening date, but there were a couple curveballs thrown their way. On the morning of February 9th, a 6.6 magnitude earthquake hit Sylmar, less than 20 miles from the park. After inspecting the park, the damage seemed limited to an electrical apparatus that hadn't been installed yet. The Sky Tower was undamaged. The quake only set them back about $50,000. In April, the park's union plumbers went on strike due to the fact that the park was using non-union labor, and they were able to get other union workers across the park to join the picket line, causing a 70% work stoppage and putting the targeted opening at risk. The park was able to get a restraining order against picketing the site, and work resumed 1 week later. With the labor dispute behind them, on April 15th, the park announced their grand opening date of May 29th, with 30 major rides, plus music, dancing, and musical guests at their 3,400-seat theater. Opening day tickets went for $5 for adults and $3.50 for children. These were all-inclusive, with just food, souvenirs, and games requiring extra cash. Doc Lemon predicted that more than 1.9 million guests would visit the park in its opening year. The park posted 1,100 jobs and had no problem filling them. Officials predicted that they could get as many as 15,000 applicants. The park was quickly staffed, new employees were trained, and the park was ready for its grand debut on Saturday, May 29th. After getting a special licensing agreement with Warner Brothers for its opening year, Bugs Bunny was there to cut the ribbon. The Jimmy Durante Show was the headline performance. Gold Rusher, an aerodynamics mine train coaster built into the hillside, was the most thrilling ride. On the other side of the hill was Log Jammer, the standout water ride with 2 big drops. Galaxy was an impressive-looking dual-arm Ferris wheel. If you like bumping into others, Sandblasters allowed you to do it in cars, and El Bumpo allowed you to do it in boats. Bottoms Up seemed to defy the laws of gravity. The Chevron Grand Prix allowed everyone to get behind the wheel. In addition to the Metro, the funicular took you right from the entrance of the park, up the hill to the entrance of the Sky Tower. And Eagle's Flight was a sky ride that would lift you to 3 different stations around the park. The park's 1 millionth visitor crossed the turnstiles in September. Shortly after, SeaWorld announced that they were leaving the partnership. The main speculation for their departure was the performance of the park. Complaints from park guests far outweighed the praise. Rides were breaking down. There weren't enough places to eat. The service was bad, and the lines were long. There wasn't enough shade, benches, or drinking fountains. The first season did not go well. Newhall Land also pointed to SeaWorld's diminished financial capacity to operate Magic Mountain, considering their new marine park opening soon in Orlando, Florida. Doc Lemon was out, and Terry Van Gorder was named the new president. Lemon wasn't bitter about being dismissed. Instead, he voiced his optimism about the park's future. That little place over there is going to flourish. You've got to give it about 3 years. He also mentioned that the park's first year was a lot more successful than that of Disneyland. I'm kind of like the author. I wrote the book. I wish it all the success in the world. In November, SeaWorld agreed to accept a $2.5 million promissory note in payment for its half interest in the park. The park managed to break even by the end of the summer, with the guest performers getting credit for driving a lot of the crowd. Thomas Lowe, the chairman of Newhall Land, mentioned a major new water ride and additions in the kids area was in the works as part of a $4.5 million investment. This turned out to be Jetstream, helping take the burden off the popular Logjammer, featuring a 45-foot drop, as well as the Enchanted Cottage and Animal Farm, bringing live animals into the park. After the contract with Warner Brothers expired, and the park lost the rights to the Looney Tunes characters, the park unveiled a set of new characters for 1972: Bloop, Bleep, King Troll, and the Wizard. The park continued booking the biggest stars they could get their hands on, including Al Martino, coming off his role in the brand new smash box office hit The Godfather. They also used other tactics to get people into the park, including a jewel hunt. The park hid $25,000 in jewels in the African Veldt section of the park, and whatever you found, you could keep.
Great white knucklers, only at Magic Mountain. Hey, ride the Gold Rusher, the Jetstream, the Himalaya, and the Mountain Express. Ride all the Magic Mountain thrill rides, and you won't have to ask. You'll know what great white knuckler means.
You get all the great white knucklers all for only one low price. Only at Magic Mountain. Only at Magic Mountain.
Heading into the park's third season, Magic Mountain was looking to announce its presence with authority. A flashy sign was put up right by the freeway off-ramp, with an information booth at the bottom. This came right in time to draw people to the park's newest and biggest coaster, Mountain Express. Located right by the entrance of the park, this Schwarzkopf Wildcat model reached heights of 50 feet and topped out at 40 miles per hour. Bill Cosby and Frankie Avalon headlined the entertainment, and the Wizard and Trolls played an even bigger role as the park's mascots. They introduced a new slogan, "Get High on Fun," and expanded the park hours to be open every day after Christmas through New Year's Day. Magic Mountain seemed to have found their stride, reporting a 48% increase in attendance from 1972 to 1973, hitting that 1.8 million mark that they had aimed for in their opening year. But just as the future looked bright, they were hit with another challenge. In October 1973, OPEC announced an oil embargo, causing a fuel shortage. Southern California tourist attractions were hit hard, as people were driving less. But Magic Mountain seemed to be spared from the hit. Publicity director Jack Ryan attributed this to the park attracting a local audience, and being the only one in Los Angeles County. People who may have ventured down to Orange County for Knott's Berry Farm or Disneyland would be more inclined to stay close to home and go to Magic Mountain. The park capitalized on their location, describing their distance not in miles or minutes, but in gallons of gas. Flyers started popping up, showing the park was 2 gallons north of Hollywood, taking a bad situation and twisting it to their advantage. New customers became repeat customers once the embargo ended in April. One weekend in August of 1974, the park had to turn guests away because there simply wasn't any more room. The 6,000 car parking lot was at capacity, and 28,000 guests had walked into the park. It was a fitting end to a record-breaking summer, spurred on by 3 new rides: the Dragon, a people mover on the other side of the mountain from the funicular; Electric Rainbow, a spinning flat ride; and Himalaya, a circular bobsled flat ride. There was also a new restaurant called Das Alpenhaus, bolstering the park's food service options. World-famous athletes made appearances at the park: Mark Spitz, a 9-time Olympic gold medal winner in swimming, and Hank Aaron, who had just broken baseball's all-time home run record earlier that year. For the kids, the 40-foot Big Bloop Bounce House opened up at the cost of just $8,000, able to take 15 kids at a time. The park also blew away their attendance records on Easter week and Thanksgiving weekend by about 33%. This also came along with a hike in ticket prices, up to $650 for adults and $550 for kids. The park capped off a great year by lighting up the Sky Tower as a Christmas tree, something they weren't able to do the year prior due to the energy crisis. The year wasn't quite perfect though. In October, a 7-year-old boy climbed out into the neck of the new Dragon ride, and he fell off, getting pinned under the car. The park had to bring out a hydraulic jack to free him. He had deep cuts on his hand, shoulder, and face, and was hospitalized for weeks. A $3 million expansion came to the park in 1975, including a new train ride called the Grand Centennial Excursion, and an indoor walkthrough attraction called the Magic Pagoda. These two would figure into the first Haunted Mountain Halloween event, as guests could board the Phantom Train to Nowhere, or they can enter the Haunted Pagoda. They also debuted the Portal House, a new shop and deli at the front of the park. This would be open even on days when the park was closed, a smart way to make some extra money. But 57 miles down the Golden State Freeway, Knott's Berry Farm was making history. On May 21st, Corkscrew opened to the public, built by Aerodynamics, being the first modern inverting coaster. Even before anyone got to ride this historic coaster, Magic Mountain had an answer. They would go back to Schwarzkopf, who installed their last coaster in Mountain Express, and build the first modern coaster to feature a vertical loop. The Great American Revolution was slated for a spring 1976 opening, to coincide with the country's bicentennial celebration. Construction started in the fall, and continued through the winter. The loop was topped off in February, and there was a test car running through the course in mid-March. Everything was on course to open up on time, which was a good thing, because Cedar Point's Corkscrew was scheduled to open with the park that year as well, featuring a vertical loop as well as 2 corkscrews. Revolution beat it out by 1 week, opening on May 8th. The coaster was an instant success, being featured in CBS's Way Out games, as well as the major motion picture Roller Coaster in the fall of 1976. Sunset Magazine gave Revolution its highest ranking, 5 stars, an honor given to only 2 other coasters at the time: the Giant Dipper at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, and Turn of the Century at Marriott's Great America. Magic Mountain was coming off a record year of attendance, up 8.5% from 2.2 million to 2.4 million, and a record year for revenues, up 21% to $24 million. After Revolution opened, their June attendance jumped 46% compared to the year prior. The park's 10 millionth guest came through the turnstiles in August, and he and his family got to meet park president Terry Van Gorder and was showered with gifts, dinner at the Four Winds Steakhouse, passes for future visits, and other merchandise. The park didn't leave the kids hanging either. They opened the interactive Wizards Village playground area, and for those looking for entertainment, the Supremes headlined the park's performances. As the park got better, the price of admission went up. Adults now had to pay $7.95 and kids $6.95. A year after opening one of the world's greatest coasters, Magic Mountain decided to mature the park. Jack Ryan said it had to be more than just fast rides. They opened Spillikin Corners, a craft village, deemed a folk fair and food fest for all ages. Potters, weavers, confectioners, doll makers, woodworkers, and other artisans would be on display, and you could buy some of these handmade items. In December, Magic Mountain would cover Spillikin Corners in man-made snow and let the kids play in it. The park also introduced a thrilling new flat ride, a Schwarzkopf Enterprise called Enterprise, but Revolution continued to carry the park through 1977. Gary Kiriazi, the author of The Great American Amusement Parks, deemed Revolution a top 10 coaster in America, the only one in Southern California to make the list, and appeared on ABC's Good Morning America, where he introduced the coaster to the rest of the country. On June 9th, David Basinger and Linda Brett Crane got married, while on the ride. The next weekend, Roller Coaster debuted in theaters, with the movie's finale taking place on Revolution. This small park catering to a local audience was now getting national exposure, and they weren't about to rest on their laurels. They had something big planned. In fact, something huge. Construction on the world's largest coaster went vertical in November. This was Colossus. Racing wooden coasters were very popular in the 1970s, but this would be the biggest of the bunch. It would be the only coaster in the world to feature 2 drops over 100 feet. As construction rolled into the winter of 1978, the numbers came in for 1977. The park had cracked the 3 million guest milestone. They continued to draw in the hottest names for the time, including performances from Greece's Frankie Valli, and was the setting for the TV movie, Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. The band would put on a concert at the park for all of the movie's extras. After investing $7 million, and even a small tornado partially collapsing the structure during construction, Colossus officially opened to the public on June 29th. It got rave reviews. One New York coaster enthusiast crossed the entire country just to ride it, and came off with just one word: devastating. By 1978, it was clear that there was a coaster war going on nationwide, and with the Great American Revolution and Colossus, Magic Mountain was right in the middle of it, if not leading it. The park had grown so much since its humble beginnings in 1971, and it was a lot for Newhall Land and Farming to take on by themselves. After all, they were a land development company, not a theme park operator. As exciting as 1978 was for the park, there were some horrifying incidents as well. In January, a mechanic was killed when one of the Grand Prix cars fell on top of him after the jack holding it up failed. In February, a pair of newlyweds boarded Eagle's flight, and their car slipped from the cable and fell 50 feet to the ground, killing the man and seriously injuring his wife. The state determined the cause to be a design flaw with the gondola, not gripping the cable tight enough. Reports were that the gondola was rocking a lot before it fell, and the inspector was able to duplicate the accident with rocking and twisting another gondola. On December 26, a woman was thrown from Colossus and fell to her death. She was ejected at the bottom of the second drop. The ride was closed for extensive investigation. There did not appear to be any mechanical failure, and the woman's body type was being looked into as a factor. It was determined that the ride needed an additional restraint, and the ride reopened in February, equipped with seatbelts. The woman's family filed a $6 million lawsuit that winter, and the park was hit with another $1 million lawsuit from a West German banker who claimed that he had suffered 2 broken vertebrae, among other injuries, after riding Colossus back in July. These incidents, in addition to the park's general growth demanding more of their resources, pushed Newhall Land and Farming to divest themselves from the park and return to their lane. In May of 1979, they found a buyer, and the rest? Is history. Thanks for watching episode 1 of this 5-part documentary. If you could drop a like and share this video with anyone who may be interested, I would really appreciate it. This is far and away my biggest project on this channel, and I appreciate the support. And big thanks to SCV History for compiling so many great images from the 1970s. If you want to see their collection, check out the link below. Stay tuned next week for episode 2, as Six Flags navigates the park through the 1980s.